serving pork lines.
Mm-hmm.
If your passion is in real estate, then somebody in your circle needs to be the guru in real estate to be able to help your passion as well as you help them do what they want to do. So it's, again, about spring cleaning, not just putting people to the side. Just realize this is not the season that you need them to play an active role in your head.
I'm thinking back some a number of years ago when I was in that age group, and I don't know if it's still true today for young people today, but I know back then it took me ages to figure out what my passion was. I mean, we're talking years. I just didn't know. Anything that I looked at looked bad to me. And I don't know if there's any way you could address that, but if you were talking to that Walt Thiessen from many years ago, what would you have said to him?
If I use this really basic example that we take out of what we call what is my perfect day, and you go through this purging process to say, personally, professionally, economically, if I could draw the perfect day today, what would it have in it? Where would I be? What would I be doing? Who would be around me? And that's the starting point to say, if this is my perfect day, and then on the other sheet of paper we say, where are you today? Here is the gap. On this perfect day, you're living out your passion. You're excited. You're moving forward. You're helping people. You're doing what you like to do. But the reality, you're not doing that. So somewhere in here is what you're passionate about, because that's what you call your perfect day.
And one thing I'm sorry, go ahead.
So where are the gaps? How do we replace the things that we're doing today with things that will help us get to our perfect day? And through that will evolve the passion because you're doing the things that you're happy about.
Yep. And one of the things I learned in the middle of my process was I was putting too much attention on trying to find passion in something I knew where there were jobs available.
Bingo.
And that doesn't work. Well, unless you happen to find one that really does match up with something you're passionate about, but the odds against that are pretty slim.
But what good does it do if you can find a job that's paying $100,000, but you hate getting up in the morning going, and throughout the day, because you're not fully engaged, you're going to think about how you don't want to be there, how you'd rather be doing something else, because you're drifting off into your passion in the midday anyway. So you're really not maximizing your potential there.
Well, it was even worse for me, though. I mean, in today's money, I was going after, I couldn't even conceive of the idea of going after the equivalent of a $100,000 job. In today's money, I was going after the equivalent of like a $30,000 to $40,000 job and still couldn't figure out what the heck I wanted to do. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that to me is the bigger issue.
You just think about, are you really willing to give up this part of your life that you, by the way, that you won't get to repeat again ever?
Right.
For the sake of, I just need to make a living.
Right.
And if we can take a step back to say, well, if I get a brand that's connected to my passion, that is solving somebody's problems and providing fresh solutions, I could have the best of both worlds. Would that be the ideal life that I'd love to have?
Yeah. That's where you start really looking at what floats your boat, what your passion is, and what it means to have a passion. That's the thing that I've noticed. I mean, there are more kids today, seemingly, who have passion than, say, when I was growing up. But even so, there are an awful lot of kids who they're almost like the wallflowers of life, and that seems to have been a pattern for generations now. Where I even wonder if they know what they get passionate about.
You know, I think for kids today and for a lot of folks, it's easier to identify the passion. The problem becomes, how do you monetize that passion?
Yes. If you can separate the whole idea of I have to make money from it, then it becomes easier to figure out what you enjoy doing. Yeah, and I guess the thing that probably took the longest for me to learn was realizing that even if I identify something that I can't see any way to make a living from it, it's important to go after it anyway, because the more you go after it, the more things start to emerge that show you how potentially you could earn a living from it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in fact, this ties into the basic theme of our show, which is the law of attraction, which I'm sure you have some familiarity with. And I was attracted to the fact that a lot of what you write about and what you talk about on your website and your promotional literature and so forth is very much in tune with LOA. One of the primary concepts of LOA, of course, is the idea that what you hold in your mind is what you'll tend to attract to you. And that seems to be very, very similar to what you're talking about when you're talking about finding your fresh passion.
Oh, it really is. And there's so much about it that's mental. And really what you begin to feed your head and your mind will actually begin to manifest itself outward. I'll never forget, and having done so much consulting in the oil and gas industry, and I could never figure out why people would make life-changing decisions with gas prices. You think about it, the average car holds about 10 gallons of gas, and gas went up 10 cents, and people said, I can't go on vacation, gas has skyrocketed. So you are not going on vacation because gas went up by $1. So you're telling your mind that I have no ability to have a great life because $1 will change my outcome. I'm not going to spend the time thinking, how do I make more money so that my family can have a balanced life and we can go on vacation and we can celebrate? Or I'm going to spend the time telling my mind, gas is very expensive. I can't go to dinner with a very good friend of mine to network and begin to bring great people in my circle because gas went up by $1. For that whole trip, I would have to pay $1 extra. So your mind gets accustomed to it. It believes that it can't go forward because you don't have the earnings potential or the passion or the brand that will help you earn more so that you can get the greater parts of life.
Right, right. Now, the other side of the coin, of course, is the type A personality. He or she knows what they want to do. They know what their passion is, and they throw themselves into it so heavily that their entire life is their work, to the point where they can't take a vacation because they've got too much to do. Mm-hmm. How do you address somebody like that? How does that fit into the philosophy that you're promoting with brand development and developing your passion?
I think, and I certainly respect every angle of it. If that's what you decide to do, then great for you, and that works for you. I find a lot of time with my clients is it's usually masking a different issue, that you absorb yourself in your work because you don't want to deal with something else, i.e., you don't want to spend as much time with the family. You'd rather go into your man cave so you don't have to deal with your wife who has a honey-do list on Saturday that's about 130 miles long. Or you just don't want to make other decisions because you're very comfortable in your work. This is comfortable for you. I don't have to deal with X, Y, Z. And it's a great way for me to keep people at bay. So when you begin to peel back the onions are you really having a maximized life? How great would it be to bring other people inside of your passion and that you're helping them to achieve their passion? Is that a part of life that you want to be known for? Or is it just, I don't want to have to deal with the rest of the world right now. I want to absorb myself in that. And when you truly understand that, you'll make some different decisions.
And perhaps a suggestion to those spouses who have the honey-do list, maybe they might want to consider putting the honey-do list aside so they can get back into the relationship with their spouse?
Exactly. If the way to your spouse into developing a healthy relationship is through their passion, then you have to learn from a branding perspective is how do you make that part of your brand? Or how do you make that part of who you are? If you're struggling with a relationship and saying our relationship is not as healthy, well, you're not really offering anything to the relationship that is attractive to your spouse, and vice versa.
It's funny.
So we have to say that, if this is not what if our passions are so disconnected that it's not causing us any time to connect, then we have a problem that we need to figure out where we go from here.
Yeah. It's funny because it's becoming more and more evident as we're talking here that brand reaches into corners of our lives that most of us never even thought of.
Absolutely. It is who you are. It's authentically who you are, and you can mask it for many years, and you can hide, but the truth and at the core is this passion that really is who you are. And what we've done is, over time, we've had to manufacture that to monetize it. We've had to manufacture it to get a relationship going because we know that we needed a significant other. So we've kind of manufactured. That's why you look at and you shake your head about someone who's been dating for 8 years and they get married and they get divorced in 3 months. What came up in 3 months that didn't come up in 8 years? Because you were manufacturing your passion and what you really wanted out of life to be able to make the connection. And at some point you got comfortable enough to say, well, I should be able to show you my true side and you should still fall in love. No, I don't like you anymore now. That's not the brand that I bought.
Right.
Or that I said I was going to commit to for life.
So this leads to a question in my mind, which is, branding is about identifying what your true passion is and presenting that to the world. How often do companies come up with false brands? In other words, how often do companies develop brands that are, they're intended to meet a certain public image or appeal to a certain demographic or something like that, but they aren't really what the company truly is all about at its core, at its spirit, at its soul level. Rather, they're trying to put out an image, this flat, non-real thing out there that people don't really identify with. It strikes me that happens a lot. Do you see it that way?
Oh, it really does. If you look at example for Best Buy, who's going through a terrible time now, because at the core of when they were founded, it was about, if I'm not an electronic geek, I can come in and you can help me figure out how to turn the VCR, to keep the VCR from blinking. You could help me. That's why I came to you for that level of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
The CEO decided several years ago that that's not what we can afford to do. That's an expensive value proposition. People can go online and they can figure this out for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to change the model. We won't have as many people on the sales floor to help you. And then the model went down in a handbasket. And now he came back this year and said, we have to really change the way we do things at Best Buy, because essentially what people do is they come in, they look at our item and get a physical view of it, and then they go online and buy it.
Right.
Where, by the way, they can find reviews and they can find customer comments to help them make the buying decision. So you're not going to offer that. That was core of who you were as Best Buy. We'll still use you as a physical place to look, to touch, to feel the item, but we'll go and make our final purchasing decision on Amazon or someplace. And
that becomes a core challenge for wide ranges of businesses who find that their brick-and-mortar approaches aren't effective anymore, that they're being undercut, if you will, by the Internet, and now they have to face this strange new world. How on earth do I survive online?
Exactly, and you look at a lot of entrepreneurs who are in the restaurant business. Everybody believes that they're a very good cook, and they have a recipe, an Italian recipe that was passed down from their mother who came over from Italy 30 years ago, or 300 years ago, whatever. And they get into the business, and if that Italian lasagna doesn't sell, they begin to add other things, which is really not core to why they started. Now they're offering chicken wings. Well, that's not something that you're good at. And over time, the menu becomes so massive that they can't manage it, and they can't keep the consistency up, and they go out of business. You look at somebody like Wendy's. Wendy's has said, we will change the menu out, but we'll never have more than X number of items because this is what we can manage, and we can do consistently.
Right.
And a very recent example, and people look at, I was talking to a reporter last week around Pope Benedict. Pope Benedict's passion is an academic theologian, not a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
And I so appreciate him for having steel in his spine to say, this is not what I'm passionate about, is running an organization. My strength and my brand was in the keeper of the faith as an academic theologian, not to be running a billion-dollar enterprise with hundreds of thousands of employees.
Right, which it really is.
Yeah, I'm behind the scenes. That's where my passion is. I've done well for the Catholic Church in that role, and I know no one has done this in 600 years, but I want to get back to my passion.
One of your major roles in your life is being a public speaker, and you've done speaking at a wide range of some of the top Fortune 500 companies. I mean, the list is rather very much of a who's who: Marriott and U.S. Army, Wendy's, Omni Hotels, Houston Rockets, Capital One, Wells Fargo, on and on and on. But I imagine you've also probably done a lot of speaking at the local level and with small organizations and so forth. Where do you find that you are able to connect easily and with the most effectiveness? Are you better with the corporate people, or are you better at the grassroots level, or is it a mixture?
I'm better at helping you to take individual responsibility.
Ah, okay, so it's individual level.
I can speak, and I thank God for the gift. I can speak to a group of 5,000, and the message can reach the individual and penetrate their own mind and psyche to say, what am I doing to make this a reality? What's my role? What's my contribution? It is not Marriott. It is, what's my contribution to the problem? What's my contribution to the solution? And here's a process to help me get a solution that will help the company.
Well, that's the mark of a good speaker, being able to speak to 5,000 and have every person in the audience feel like that you're talking right to them.
Yeah, it didn't dawn on me until maybe 10 years ago, and I saw it and I still see it to this day on the feedback, where people become so and believe that it's so customized for them. Because, again, it's about that individual brand, that individual contribution that you're making. And when you begin to put yourself into the equation and not say it's about them, you'll make a fundamentally different decision and become excited and motivated about how your brand can fit into the whole of the organization.